Today, we're going to dissect the most misunderstood concept in economics. It's not a guide to getting rich. That's a relatively straightforward, if challenging, pursuit. We're going to explore something far more complex, and for many, more elusive, the architecture of poverty. Most people operate under the simplistic notion that poverty is merely a deficit of currency. This is a fundamental error. Poverty isn't a number on a bank statement. It's a physics problem. It's a gravitational field, a closed-loop system engineered by circumstance and psychology to keep you orbiting a single draining point until your momentum is gone and you can no longer fight the pull. I call this the physics of poverty. To truly understand the struggle, you must first understand the principles of rocketry. When a spacecraft attempts to leave Earth, its primary adversary is gravity. To break free and achieve a stable orbit, it must attain a precise velocity, what we call escape velocity. If the rocket expends 99% of the fuel necessary, but fails to reach that critical speed, what happens? It doesn't make it 99% of the way to the moon. It stalls, succumbs to the inescapable tug, and plummets back to Earth, often in a spectacular and devastating crash. This is the exact trajectory of the working class. You exert tremendous effort, you save a modest amount, you begin to climb the slick walls of the financial well. You get halfway, your future starts to look brighter, and then it happens, the car's transmission fails, an unexpected medical bill arrives, the landlord raises the rent. Gravity, which had been a manageable force, suddenly becomes overwhelming. Because you hadn't yet reached the altitude of true financial security, the escape velocity of your situation. You don't just stop climbing. You fall. You crash back to the bottom, often landing in a deeper, more discouraging place than where you started, now with significantly less fuel and a heavier heart. This is the brutal, counterintuitive truth of the system. Linear effort, in the face of exponential challenges, yields a net result of zero, or even negative. The system isn't rigged by a shadowy cabal in a smoke-filled room. It's rigged by mathematics. It's rigged by the immutable principle that poverty itself is an expensive enterprise. When your resources are scarce, everything carries a hidden surcharge. You can't afford the economy-sized package of goods, so you pay a higher unit price for everything from toilet paper to rice. You can't afford the 200 boots built to last a decade, so you buy the $4 boots that disintegrate every year, ultimately spending more over time while your feet are perpetually wet. This is the essence of the Sam Vimes boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. You cannot afford preventative health care, so you wait until a minor ailment becomes a critical emergency, landing you in the emergency room with a bill 10 times what a simple doctor's visit would have cost. The system doesn't just ignore the poor, it actively taxes them for their lack of capital, through late fees, overdraft charges, and predatory interest rates. You are trying to win a race, carrying a backpack full of stones, while others glide along with the wind at their backs. And the most insidious part, this external force eventually rewires your internal landscape. Prolonged entrapment in this cycle doesn't just deplete your bank account, it reprograms your neural pathways. It forces your brain into a perpetual state of fight or flight, flooding your system with cortisol, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning and rational decision-making. Your prefrontal cortex is hijacked by the amygdala, your fear center. Your effective IQ measurably drops. You cease to plan for a decade from now and become wholly consumed by the anxieties of the next 10 minutes. You become reactive, not proactive. This is the poverty loop. Low income generates chronic stress. Stress degrades decision-making. Poor decisions prevent asset accumulation. And a lack of assets ensures the continuation of low income. It's a perfect, vicious, and self-licking ice cream cone. But physics, while a stern master, also provides the roadmap for escape. The laws of gravity can be overcome with sufficient force and the right trajectory. In this narrative, we will reverse engineer this trap. We will identify the 5 specific chains that bind you, from the cognitive drain of the scarcity tax to the seductive lure of the dopamine trap and the soul-crushing futility of the linear income trap. Finally, we will blueprint the construction of your own engine, the method for generating the escape velocity required to leave the atmosphere of poverty for good. Once you break that orbit, the very dynamics change. The constant friction vanishes, a profound silence replaces the noise of survival, and for the first time, you have the clear air and the altitude to truly fly. But first, we must survive the launch. Let's begin the countdown. Let's enter the first loop. I call this the scarcity tax. A common, well-intentioned fallacy is that injecting cash into the hands of the poor is a panacea. Yet, statistics on lottery winners tell a different story. A significant percentage are bankrupt within a few years. Why? Because poverty is not merely a cash flow problem, it is a bandwidth problem. The groundbreaking research by Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir, detailed in their book Scarcity, reveals a startling truth. When your mind is preoccupied with a pressing scarcity, like an imminent rent payment or a looming bill, your cognitive bandwidth is consumed. In their studies, they found that this state of mind can cause a drop in effective IQ of as much as 13 points. This is the equivalent of losing a full night's sleep or functioning as a cognitive alcoholic. This means that when you are in the grip of financial stress, you are attempting to navigate complex, long-term strategic decisions with a compromised mental processor. You are in survival mode, and survival mode has a very narrow, short-term focus. You cannot see the horizon when you are treading water in a storm. This is the scarcity trap. Limited bandwidth leads to reactive, suboptimal decisions. You take the payday loan with the usurious 400% APR because you need the cash now to keep the lights on. You buy the cheap, processed food because it's calorically dense and requires no forethought. This isn't a measure of your inherent intelligence. It's a symptom of your profound exhaustion. And the system, both natural and man-made, is expertly designed to exploit this exhausted state. This brings us back to the Vimes boots theory, a perfect metaphor for this systemic tax. The wealthy individual can afford a high-quality pair of boots for $500, which lasts for years. The person with limited means can only afford the $50 boots, which wear out in months. Over a decade, the poor person has spent far more money, endured constant discomfort, and wasted time and energy in the process. You pay more for everything, more for credit, more for goods, more for housing. You are charged a premium for the simple fact of not having a buffer. So how do we sever this first chain? How do we stop the hemorrhaging? You must construct a buffer. Your initial financial goal is not wealth, a home, or market-beating investments. It is to amass a modest, almost embarrassingly small, cash reserve, 100,000 or even 500. This capital is sequestered in a separate account, its sole purpose not to be spent, but to be present. This money is for buying back your brain. When you have a buffer, a car repair is an inconvenience, not a catastrophe. You are no longer forced to accept the predatory payday loan. You stop paying the scarcity tax. You transition from reacting to emergencies to simply managing challenges. That 100,000 purchases your most valuable asset, cognitive bandwidth. It restores a fraction of your lost IQ, allows you to sleep, and grants you the mental space to lift your gaze from the ground and contemplate the horizon. Most people try to build a skyscraper on a swamp, skipping this foundational step. You must first drain the swamp. You must build the buffer. This demands a period of intense, focused sacrifice. For a few months, you may need to live with monastic austerity, but you are doing so with a clear purpose. You are buying your freedom from the scarcity tax. Now we enter the second loop, perhaps the most emotionally charged. I call this the dopamine trap. The judgmental refrain is familiar. If you're so poor, why do you have the latest smartphone? Why those expensive sneakers? From the outside, it looks like simple, irresponsible hedonism. But let's examine the biology. When you are trapped in the poverty loop, your life is characterized by chronic pain. Your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, are perpetually elevated. You feel insignificant, invisible, powerless. Your brain, in this state of constant duress, screams for relief. It craves a win, however small. So, when you walk into a store and acquire that new pair of shoes or that branded accessory, your brain releases a flood of dopamine. For a few precious minutes, the pain subsides. You feel a sense of success, of mattering. This isn't mere consumerism, it is self-medication. You are using consumption as an anesthetic to numb the agony of your reality. But this is the cruelest trap of all. The relief is a fleeting illusion, while the debt is a permanent anchor. The dopamine fades in minutes, leaving you with a chemical low that craves another hit. The credit card bill, however, lingers for years, compounding the very stress you were trying to escape. This illuminates the fundamental philosophical divergence in how money is perceived. The scarcity mindset views money as a means to acquire pleasure, a balm for the present. The wealth-building mindset views money as a tool to acquire freedom, a foundation for the future. This is the distinction between assets and liabilities. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out. That designer handbag is a liability. It depreciates the moment you carry it out. That streaming subscription you never watch is a liability, a slow, perpetual bleed. The car with the high monthly payment is a massive liability. Many individuals trapped in the low income cycle are drowning in liabilities. They project an image of prosperity, but they are hemorrhaging wealth daily. They are feeding the dopamine monster while systematically starving their future selves. So, how do we break this loop? How do we initiate a detox? You must enter what can only be described as monk mode. This is a period of radical, intentional elimination. It is not a permanent state of deprivation, but a temporary, therapeutic reset for your brain's reward system. For the next 6 months, you cut ruthlessly. You cancel subscriptions. You eliminate dining out. You halt all non-essential clothing purchases. You drink water. You walk. You strip your existence down to the raw essentials: shelter, sustenance, and basic transport. It will be stark. It will be profoundly boring. Your peers may not understand. But you must internalize a new mantra. I am not poor. I am in training. When you cease to derive your dopamine from spending, your neural pathways begin to rewire. You will start to find a novel, more enduring pleasure in watching your bank account incrementally grow. You will begin to get high on saving. This is the dopamine of control, of agency. Once you realize that a new phone is not the source of happiness, you become a different kind of person. You become a threat to the system that seeks to manipulate you with shiny objects. You have broken the addiction. You are free. Now we enter the third loop, the one that keeps you perpetually exhausted. I call this the linear income trap. Society programs us with a simple, seductive equation: time equals money. To get more money, you must sell more time. A second job, overtime, a side hustle that eats your weekends. The equation seems logical, but it contains a fatal flaw. Time is a finite resource. There is a hard ceiling on the number of hours you can sell before your body and mind break. This mathematically caps your income potential. You can work yourself to the bone, and you will still hit a wall. Your expenses, however, are not capped. They are not subject to the same physical laws. This introduces the silent killer of the working class: inflation. Inflation is a tax levied on those who sell their time. As the money supply expands, the price of goods, bread, rent, gasoline increases. But your wages, they are what economists call sticky. Your employer may delay a raise for a year or more, and when it comes, it's a paltry 2-3%. By then, inflation has already eroded 8% of your purchasing power. You are on a treadmill that is speeding up, running as fast as you can just to stay in the same place, and slowly being pushed backward. You sell more hours, miss your child's milestones, compromise your health, and at the end of the year, you discover you are effectively poorer. This is the very definition of futility. You cannot win a rigged game by playing by the stated rules. You have to change the game itself. You must transition from selling your time to selling your value. How? By building a skill stack. The conventional wisdom is to become the absolute best at one thing, the best accountant, the best plumber. This path is incredibly crowded and difficult. The secret to breaking the linear income trap is to become proficient at 2 or 3 distinct and even unrelated skills and then synthesize them. Consider Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert. He was not the funniest writer in the world. He was not the best artist. He was not a top-tier business mind. But he was good enough at all 3. By stacking them, he created a unique offering that was exponentially more valuable than the sum of its parts. If you are a low-income worker, do not simply seek another source of linear income, like flipping burgers. Use your monk mode hours to acquire a second skill. If you are a construction worker, learn sales and negotiation. You are no longer a laborer, you are a contractor who can win bids and manage clients. If you are a waiter, learn the principles of marketing or copywriting. You become not just a server, but someone who can help design a menu to increase high-margin sales. You must become a double threat. When you stack skills, you decouple your income from your hourly presence. You become harder to replace, transforming yourself from a commodity into a unique asset. The market does not pay for effort, it pays for rarity. If you can be replaced in a week, you will always be poor. You must construct a moat around your income, and that moat is your unique, integrated skill stack. Now, we enter the 4th loop. This is the most insidious chain to break because it is invisible. I call this social gravity. There is an aphorism, cliché because it is true. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your closest companions are struggling, you will likely be the 6th. If they are consumed by complaint and cynical about the future, you will be the 6th. If their ambitions have been extinguished, you will be the 6th. Why? Because humans are profoundly mimetic creatures. Our brains are equipped with mirror neurons that subconsciously compel us to mimic the behaviors, language patterns, and, most critically, the mindsets of our tribe. If you are striving to escape a gravitational field, but are surrounded by those who have accepted their orbit, you are fighting a battle you cannot win. This is the crab bucket effect. Place 1 crab in a bucket, and it will easily crawl out. Place 10 in a bucket, and as one begins its ascent, the others will reach up and pull it back down. They do this not out of malice, but out of a shared sense of equilibrium. Your potential escape highlights the reality of their own confinement, and that is an uncomfortable truth. When you begin your monk mode, when you start saving, when you start learning, your old social circle will notice. And they will not celebrate your progress. They will attack it with a campaign of social gravity. Why are you working so hard? Relax. You think you're better than us now? Don't bother, the game is rigged. This is the sound of the crabs pulling you back down. This is the sound of social gravity. If you listen, you stay in the bucket. You must understand that poverty is often a cultural inheritance, a shared narrative of victimhood. The story goes, the government is corrupt, the rich are evil, and I am just unlucky. This story is comforting. It provides an external locus of control and absolves you of personal responsibility, but it also keeps you perpetually stuck. So, how do you break this loop? You must practice ruthless intellectual isolation. This doesn't mean abandoning your family. It means protecting the sanctity of your mind. You cannot afford to spend hours each day marinating in someone else's despair. That is cognitive poison. You must find a new tribe. You might say, but I'm poor. Successful people don't want to spend time with me. This is true in the physical world, but you live in an age of miraculous access. You can find virtual mentors. You can spend your evenings with Charlie Munger, not by buying him dinner, but by reading his speeches. You can spend your mornings with Einstein by reading his biography. You can fill your mind with the greatest thinkers in history through their books, their interviews, their podcasts. Let their voices become the dominant signal in your life, drowning out the noise of your immediate environment. When you absorb the biography of a titan of industry, you are effectively downloading their mental operating system. You are hacking your own mirror neurons. You are consciously choosing to become the average of the authors you read, not the people who live next door. This is how you transcend the gravity of your zip code. You construct a new, more aspirational neighborhood within the architecture of your own mind. And finally, we arrive at the fifth loop, the engine room of wealth. I call this the compound void. Albert Einstein, when asked about the most powerful force in the universe, reportedly said, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." If you are trapped in the poverty loop, you are almost certainly on the paying side. You are carrying credit card debt at 20% interest, auto loans, or high-interest student loans. The mathematics are working against you with every tick of the clock. Every morning you wake up, you are poorer than you were the night before, even if you spent nothing. You are swimming upstream in a current too powerful for your arms. The wealthy occupy the opposite bank. They earn compound interest. Their capital is deployed in assets that appreciate and generate returns. Equity in businesses, real estate, diversified index funds. They wake up every day richer than the night before, having done nothing but let the snowball of accumulated capital roll downhill, gathering more snow. If you want to escape low income, you must make the existential transition from being the person who pays interest to the person who earns it. You must cross this great divide. This is the roadmap, the 3 stages of escape. Stage 1 is survival. This is where you stop the active bleeding. You use the austerity of monk mode to generate cash and aggressively annihilate all high-interest debt. You are not investing yet. You are on a search and destroy mission to kill the vampires that are draining your lifeblood. Stage 2 is accumulation. This is where you begin to methodically acquire productive assets. Not a better car, not a bigger TV. You take a fixed amount, even just $10 a day, and you automate its investment into a broad market, low-cost index fund. You ignore the market's noise and its siren songs. You are building your own snowball. It will look pathetically small at first. It will feel futile. But you must trust the cold, hard mathematics of exponential growth. Stage 3 is freedom. This is the moment when the cash flow generated by your accumulated assets finally exceeds the cost of your basic survival needs. This is escape velocity. At this precise instant, you have broken the gravitational pull. You are no longer required to sell your finite time simply to stay alive. You have options. You have agency. You have dignity. We have now mapped the poverty loop in its entirety. The scarcity tax that depletes your mind. The dopamine trap that empties your wallet. The linear income trap that consumes your time. The social gravity that imprisons your spirit. And the compound void that works against you at every turn. These are the chains. But remember this crucial final truth. Chains may be forged from metal, but they are ultimately fastened by the mind. The door to the cage is, and has always been, unlocked. The system, your friends, your own fear, they all want you to believe the cage is permanent. But you now possess the physics. You have the map. You understand the forces at play. All that remains is to summon the will to walk through that door. That is the only thing standing between you and the silence of orbit. Thanks for reading.